What's up, fam? So welcome to another episode of Talks with Rodz. So, like I said, I've been trying to be more consistent with these videos, trying to definitely put out more content, to really just stay on, on topic, stay focused, and keep myself accountable with these. I realized, with the last video, people really liked how raw it was. I've been getting private messages about it, and that's how we're gonna keep it, for today. Today's, talk, right? If we're just kicking it today, it was something that I wrote down in my notes that I then later did not realize until when I read it later, the significance of it, right? And I don't know about you guys, right? We're just gonna be vulnerable with each other right now. But have you ever gone through something, right? You go and you're with God and you prayed about it and boom, God brought you through it and, all that good stuff. And then like a week later, maybe even a day later, you go and you hear like a preaching that's specifically on what you just went through. And you're like, Lord, if I would have known that, if I'd have had this tool when I was going through it, this would have helped me out so much. Like, it's crazy how, let's say, you're going through like some financial struggles, right? And you're just leaning on God and you're just focusing all your stuff. And then you go to church on Sunday or you hear, a service or someone sends you a clip, and it's talking about how God's going to provide for you, prosper, give you pretty prosperous for you, gives you words, gives you the tools, get you pumped up. And you're like, hey, God, like you couldn't give me this like a week ago, like a month ago when I was like struggling through all this. And I remember like, it was a specific word. I'm not getting into details. That's probably for a later video if God tells me to. That sometimes, right? Yes, obviously God, can go and send people, to speak a word. He'll send like a, whether a properly, timed text message or a really great word, from the pastor or a friend or all that. But there's some times where God's like, I could have sent that to you. I could have given that to you. But I had to separate you for this. I had to remind you that at the end of the day, you don't need to have, the perfect praise and worship song. You don't need to have the uplifting message. All you need to do is listen to me, right? And then the caveat to that, too, right? A little like another point to that. I don't know if I use caveat right, but the second point to that was sometimes the reason why you're going through that hard thing is to show others that it can be done. Right? So you can go back to those situations, right? Back to those instances and use it as a testimony, right? As a collateral of like, hey, listen, y'all, like I've been down that path before, right? Let's say bad divorce, right? You get through it and, God's definitely brought you through it. And now you can go and help others, that are going through some nasty divorces that maybe you went through a time where, maybe, some things with the courts, right? Some legal issues happen, you got through it. And maybe, something happened with, feeling abandoned, whatever it might be, add whatever category you want there. But, and I actually saw it in a quote, which it was ironic because once I talked about, this, to God, I saw this quote pop up that maybe, God, lets you go through this, right? And you go through this for the reason that it's to show the people that it can be done, right? So then you can go back into those places and pull people out, right? Be like, hey, listen, look, I've been in those places where you're at. Hey, listen, you don't have to worry about, feeling, judged or condemned about it. Cause like, I get it. Like I've been that way, right? Like I've been through those situations. I've been that person. You can have whatever, I've gone through those, drug addictions. I've gone through those, manic depression states. I've gone through X, Y, and Z. You can then pull people out of that. That spoke to me in a big way because sometimes, right, when we're in the middle of it, we don't really understand why it's happening. We don't understand why is it that, like, Lord, like, what's happening, right? And people like to use Job all the time, and that's, it's a good one, hey, Job, was tested, and God was like, hey, that's a, test this man, because watch, he'll never forsake me. That's all good. But there's other people too, right? Look at Abraham. Right, God called him to go to a place that he'd never been before. Let's use another example. Look at David. David was anointed to be king. After he was anointed, he went straight back to the fields, right? He could have been, I talked about this before, he could have been like, Lord, like you've called me to be a king. Why am I going back to these fields, right? Look at Joseph. Joseph didn't go. Joseph got that vision that, of the coats that, his stock of, wheat would be bound down by his brothers. And with that kind of vision, right? That kind of, the gift that God gave him with that sight to see that, he could have been like, okay, we're good, we're good, like, I'll be fine. But no, what did he get? He went to a pit. Then from a pit, he went to a prison. And from the prison, then he went to the palace, right? So we could put ourselves in those positions and be like, I'll use another example. Paul was doing exactly what he was supposed to do. Got shipwrecked, got into a storm, and they almost died, right? There's so many instances where like we are going through some things and we're like, Lord, like, what's up? Like, I'm doing what you told me to do. Because obviously there's times where, we step out, we mess up. Look at Jonah, he steps out, and even God, and then God's mercy and grace saved him from that. But I'm talking about when you're doing everything right. Right, when you didn't see that attack coming, you didn't see that hit coming, you didn't see that betrayal, you didn't see, those gossip, you didn't see that this thing would flip on its head, you didn't see that recession, you didn't see that, insert whatever you want in there, and yet a week later, a month later, and I'm using this because like it was so real in my life, like something had been going on, and I was praying about it, and I was focused on like, all right, cool, God brought me, it was a time where I definitely like buckled down even more and just really pressed in, and, I was seeking, God's presence for it, and bam, we cool, we got through it, it was awesome. And like a week later, I see a message, not by one, not by two, but by three pastors, pastors that I really, respect and admire and I really listen to, that, brought some fire word. I'm like, this is exactly what I could have used a week ago. Right, I could have used this specific word for me, and I was like, Lord, like, what's happening? And that's where He really put that into my spirit. That sometimes we go through things not for our own, win and for our own, victory, and that's great, but more to show others that it can be done. Right? Sometimes we go through things in our lives that it requires us to be just you and God. Right? It requires the intimate time with Him, because if anything else was in the mix, you wouldn't hear His voice. It's always great to have a good, rah-rah speech and like, okay, really great word. But what about those silent moments, those quiet moments, which is you and God? Yeah, those are the times where I feel God really does speak to us truly. Don't get me wrong, again, I've said it before, like, I've had, pastors and prophets come in there and into my church and other places, and they'll prophesy and they'll speak words into our lives. And that's great and that's phenomenal. But what about those times where it's just you and God, right? Where you don't have that phone call to make, right? You don't have, that service you can click on. Maybe that worship song isn't hitting like it normally is. You know what? When you find yourself in a situation where you don't have that connection, that community, it's in those moments where God, I feel, wants to remind us that all that's great, but all you truly, really do need is Him. All you really do need is to listen to His voice. What you really need is to stay so intimate with God that it doesn't matter the outside voices, the outside feelings, the outside whatever, that when we have God in the midst of it, when we talk to Him, not just as God, but as our Father, it's in those moments where the revelation truly is shown. Yeah. And that spoke to me because it felt like, and I know, like, whenever you guys are watching this, like, I'm recording this in August, like, we're, in month 8, time of new beginnings, and it's biblical, it's, we're going numbers, number 8, 7 is completion, number 8 is new beginnings, and you'll be thinking, dude, Rodrigo, we're in month 8, dude, like, we're already past the halfway mark, for this year. What's to say that God can't do something amazing and new right now, right? It's never too late. For God, it doesn't matter. Look at Lazarus. He was in the tomb for 3 days. You people thought, oh man, it's too late. Lazarus, he's decaying. And Jesus was like, come on, Lazarus, get out of here. It's never too late, right? When the centurion was going back with Jesus and they got word and like, hey, don't bother the master. Your servant's already dead. And he's like, nah, just say the word, right? Those are the times where we have to legitimately block out our own feelings sometimes, right? Because we can convince ourselves real quick of how many things could go wrong, of how many things we might be late for, how many things that maybe, hey man, I'm too old for this, I'm too young for that. Oh man, I lost my time. I missed the edge. I missed the term, whatever it might be. But if we remember that our God is still a God of suddenly, and suddenly this happened, and suddenly the chains broke off, and suddenly the wall started to shake, and suddenly the presence of God filled the room. God is still the God of suddenly, right? So if you're thinking, oh come on, if you're thinking that, oh man, we're already in August, we're already I'm already late in my years. I'm already, I missed this. I've already missed too many opportunities. I've messed up too many times. They've told me no too many times. I've been rejected so many times. You keep on thinking that the world is the judge of all this. Remind yourself, right? Go lock yourself in your prayer closet. Go one-on-one with God and be like, God, you are still the God of suddenly. You're still the God of today, yesterday, and tomorrow. You're still the God that no matter what happened, you're still with me, right? I talked about in my last video that I'm grateful for God being with me on top of the mountain, but I'm even more grateful that he's with me in the valley, right? Because in the mountaintop, I'm seeing everything. I've got the victory. I've won. I know that. Cool, I'm on top. But it's in the valley. Oh, come on. It's in the valley where I'm struggling with situations, where I'm struggling with my own thoughts, where I'm fighting these fights, and I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm just in the middle of it. I'm feeling like I can't even go one step further. It's at those moments where God goes, I got you, son. I got you, daughter. Come here. It's at those times that you get excited because it's in those moments where God truly shines, right? We're called to be the lights of the world. And obviously, you're in a room full of lights and cool. If I turn all these lights on, super filled. If I turn a little flashlight on, you wouldn't notice. But it's in the darkness, right? Even my small little iPhone camera, like that pops up. It lights up my area, right? We need to remind ourselves, that it doesn't matter how it could look to everyone else. It doesn't matter how we might even think. Our brains have a limited capacity to it. In those moments where like, God, I don't know what to do next. It's in those moments, throw your hands up, be like, Lord, I don't know what to do, but you do. You got this. Take control. Right? And obviously easier said than done. Easier said than done when, and I heard this in one of the pastors talked about this. They made me laugh, right? When you got more month than rent, right? When you got more month than money, right? Like, oof, come on. Like it is the third and I've already spent all my money. How am I going to get through the rest of this month? And God's like, I got you, dude. I got you, my daughter. And it seems to those that maybe haven't experienced that before, like, dude, all right, like you're going to tell me that I have nowhere, you're going to figure out what's happening, like, right, you have less money than you do a month. Yes. I'm telling you from personal experience, God has shown up in my life in places and in times where I'm like, oof, that had to be you. Like, there's no other way but that. And those are the instances that when I go back in my mind and I look at, right, the battles and the fights and the things that I've gone through and the people around me have gone through, right, the testimony they share with me, we can always go back and pinpoint, but God was still there. I might have been struggling this, but see, God was still there. His hand was still here. And when I reached the limit, and when I reached my limits here, God showed up, right? And that, for me, speaks volumes because it reminds me of the God I serve. That, he's God, the Alpha and the Omega. He's also my dad. He's also my father, my loving father, right? And I pause as I say this a little bit because, like, I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to, keep it together. My pastor said something, and it was really interesting how he said it. That God's God, right? And God is fully God 100%. But there's times in my life, and there are numerous times in my life, where obviously I always need, right, the God that sits on the throne and the strength and the Alpha and the Omega, my everything, right, my provider, everything. There's times I just need him to be my dad. I just need him to be my comfort, be my, be loving to me, give me that hug, right? And how amazing is it that God is everything, including love. He's everything to us. Provider, Rapha, he's just my strength, my provider, he clothes me and he protects me and he loves up. He's all that. He's gentle too. He's caring. He sees me even when I feel like I can't see myself. So fam, when I tell you that thing you're going through, I get it's tough. I get it's hard. And I get that you feel like you are drowning in whatever it is you are in right now. Just trust God. Because he sees you. He loves you. And on the other side of this mess is the miracle. It might not feel like it now, but what you're going through now will be the currency you can give to the people that if God did it with me, he can do it with you. It's as simple as that. And there's purpose to the pain. There's purpose to the process. There's a purpose to all this. We might not see it now, right? The book of Luke says, like, you might not understand what I'm doing now, but later you will. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. But it's true. It's true that it doesn't matter what your own thoughts might say. Go back to the word says. Go back to what God says about you. Re-energize yourself. Remember that everything else could diminish. Everything else could just bleed away and just go away. But God's love for you won't. He'll always be there right next to you. He'll carry you when he needs to carry you. He'll elevate you. He'll pull you out when you're drowning. Just keep going. Yeah, just don't give up. You're still in the fight. You're still pushing. I've said it multiple times. If you have breath in your lungs, you can pray. If you can pray, you can fight. If you can fight, you can win, because the win is already guaranteed for you. So act like it. You're fighting from victory, not for victory. Remember that. You're fighting from a place of winning. Your heads and not tails. So fam, if that's what you're going through, that's you're struggling, hopefully this video definitely helped you out. Hopefully this video was something that could pour into you, because it was something that I didn't realize at first, right? I wish I had known this, before. But the revelation usually comes after the issue happens, right? After things have gone on, right in the midst of it, right? So sometimes you just got to understand that, yeah, there's a battle to it all. But man, the story you'll tell after it, how you survived, how you got through it, how God was with you through every step of the way, that right there, that's the real victory. So keep going, guys. Y'all got this. Yeah? Love you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can see any of these talks, any of these videos. Try to stay more active with you guys. Try, keep on putting more videos out. And just talking, right? Shoot me an email, put it in the comments. Hey, I'd love you to talk about this. Hey, if you could pray for that, any prayer requests down there, add you guys to my morning praying list. And yeah, guys, I love you guys. Keep, getting after it. Keep pushing for it. Keep just going forward. God's got you. He loves you. I'm praying for you. We're going to get through this, yeah? I love you guys. Stay safe. And as always, make it the best day ever. See you on the next one.